Hi, my name is Scott Drimmy. I'm with the Southern African Food Lab, which is a project of Stellenbosch University. We have a strong link with the Centre for Complex Systems and Transition, which is obviously linked to the Stockholm Resilience Centre through the GRADE project. I work a great deal as a designer and a facilitator of spaces that are intended to ultimately transform the food system in South and Southern Africa. And it's this chapter which is going to focus on some of the key lessons that we think are pertinent to working as a practitioner in this space. Resilience is obviously something that is, well, not necessarily easily, but is well defined, it's conceptualized. But working in it in terms of practice is something that has been really challenging and something which we have been thinking a great deal about, particularly when working with smallholder farmers in the South African food system. So one of the key issues for us is that in South Africa we have a failing system when it comes to food. We have very high levels of child undernutrition. 27% of children are stunted. We're looking at moderate rates of wastage, but also incredibly high rates. Almost 60% of adult females are obese or overweight. 30% of men are in the same category. But linked to that, we're also dealing with an ecological crisis. We're seeing soil, we're seeing water, we're seeing issues around the fertility of the land under incredible threat. And all of this compounded by climate change. And linked to this is the disparity and the incredible inequality which characterizes South Africa. And that plays out in a very real way in that food system. So our position is very much that we need to bring people from across the country that are engaged with elements of food to enter into a process of dialogue, to try and find new ways of thinking. So we're seeking new ideas, new relationships, and ultimately new commitment to trying to shift that system. So we're taking that holistic approach. We're creating a space where people can be relaxed, where they can truly engage, where they can see things differently, and entering into communion with that process to ultimately try and come up with something that's innovative, that's different. We're not only about dialogue, we also believe that conflict is necessary to shift the system. And so in many of the processes that we have, we also bring in the dialectic, where people with opposing views can engage within certain rules, but they can really engage in terms of trying to understand and push each other to finding these new ways. So just thinking about this in terms of what that means as a practitioner, working to creating a more resilient food system, a few key things emerge. We have a theory of change. It's built on the U process that's been around for some years. It's a process that I think is well known globally in terms of processes that bring groups of people representing a system to ultimately see that system differently, to engage with people most affected by that system. And having really challenged and rethought the way they see that, to try and come up with new ideas about responding. And so we then enter into what we call these lab processes, where groups of people come into carefully facilitated, carefully designed interaction to come up then with new ideas. Those ideas are then taken and preferably seeded with organizations or individuals that can run with them, that can nurture them. And ultimately we hope that some of them might reach some form of fruition that can disrupt the system. One of the key things that we've realized is that we've got to move beyond these theories of change in terms of blueprints or things that exist in academic texts. But in so doing, we've learned that we've got to continually learn and adapt the approach. And so we've learned this reflective, quite iterative process in terms of the way we embark upon design labs moving towards transformation. Ultimately, it's about experimentation, and we can't be locked into one fixed method. Another key issue is that we've realized that we have to proactively address power and those power imbalances that are characteristic of Southern Africa continuously in the process. So often it is that a government official assumes that they can close a meeting, that they can sum up. Or it's often that an academic from Sweden or perhaps from one of the universities in South Africa has the right to speak on behalf of a table of different types of people. And we have to engage with that, particularly when it comes to race, based on the long history of South Africa. And this is deeply challenging with people with resources, people that mean well, that are trying to help the process, having to stand back to learn to let other voices emerge. And that's become key in terms of our design and key in terms of really enabling people, preparing people to enter into the processes that we work. We believe that facilitating change has to happen across scale, and particularly the scales of the institutional structure. So I mean, that sounds like a complicated thing to say, but in essence it means that when, for example, we're working with smallholder farmers that are learning a new way of producing food through agroecology, that they themselves are going back into the field, they're beginning to change the way they are growing food, producing food, connecting it to markets, that unless we've changed the broader institutional fabric, so in other words, the extension offices, the government support, the markets, and we haven't engaged those things, they will very quickly close down on that innovation. They will throttle what those farmers are trying to do. And so we've realized that we've got to be working across those scales, and that has a very deliberate implication in terms of the way we design and the way we facilitate. My last reflection is something that may seem obvious, but I think possibly is the most important thing that we've learned. So we're assuming that transformation is a good thing, but in fact transformation is often very, very painful. So we've worked with farmers, particularly women farmers, that have, in essence, in terms of their leadership capabilities, their ability to present themselves in terms of patriarchy or hierarchy, have faced incredible pushback. They've faced, in many ways, disconnection from the old systems in which they've worked. And we've realized that in terms of real transformation, we've got to be disturbing the status quo. And unless we're prepared to run the whole way with the people that we're engaged with in these processes, we're in fact doing a disservice, not only to our methodology, but in terms of what we're trying to achieve with transforming that ultimate system. Disturbing the status quo, building transformation is very painful. So, those are broad reflections. I hope they will be of use. I look forward to further engagement. Thank you.